Okay, so we're now recording. So Joshua Shapiro, why don't you just give everybody an introduction, whatever, as long or as short as you would like.
Okay, hello everyone. I'd like to first acknowledge Charles for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Joshua Shapiro, and I like to call myself a crystal skull explorer. That seems to describe part of what I do, although I'm also a paranormal explorer as well. Um, I have been involved in the study of one of the greatest mysteries on the planet, known as crystal skulls, which maybe some of you, if you saw the last Indiana Jones film in 2008, there was a certain degree in which that was shown truthfully, but most of it was not the way that I experience these artifacts. Since 1983, when I met my first one, which was made out of amethyst quartz, which is a purple quartz, I have felt that the crystal skulls are a uh, what do I want to say, a key sacred artifact from our past, which is resurfacing now to assist humanity to create world peace. And although for many people who don't understand what the crystal skulls are, which probably through this interview I'll be able to explain more about it, they have very special healing and powerful energies that surround them that have the possibility to help people in numerous ways who see them. So after I had my first experience with one around my, let's see, 1983, and I was born in 50, so my 28th birthday, so for 38 years now I've been involved in this. After I had a very powerful experience with one 38 years ago, more than 38 years ago, and I received this message through a picture of this amethyst skull that they're coming back to help us for world peace. I've committed myself to finding the best information and share it in every form possible, whether it's through interviews like this, through books, through public talks, through online talks. Um, I've had a chance to be part of various documentaries. I have two stories that I hope one day will be made into movie. I mean, I'm a typical Aries. I'm going to go after and challenge myself to do everything, even if it, in the moment where I'm inspired to do a project, it seems to be impossible. Prior to becoming a crystal skull explorer, I called myself an Aquarian Age networker, which to me meant, again, a person traveling the world, going on faith, and looking for answers to life, but mostly from a spiritual or what has been called a paranormal perspective. So I believe that we are all divine children of God. I believe that we have what I would call spirit guides, which are helpers, invisible helpers. And I think that they have been guiding me since in my 20s that I started to explore all of these things, to travel all over the world to discover not only amazing mysteries that exist, but also through my experiences, understanding about what these mysteries are and where we're going. Another thing I'm just going to mention now, which will be up to Charles if he asks me about it, because I have a free ebook. I actually have 4 free ebooks that I'm offering to anyone who watches this interview. I've been doing that, offering free ebooks since I started doing my interviews with Coast to Coast last year, which was in July of 2020. But there is a free ebook I have that talks about these two experiences. And these two experiences talk about the future of where humanity is going. So the other key message that I hope to convey in this interview is from these two, I have to call them inner or spiritual experiences that I had, that show me that there will be total peace on this planet between 2037 to 2040. And that actually in this year, I think that there's a couple of key events. Maybe the Maricopa audit that's going on in Arizona will be one of those events, that there's events that are happening now that people will start to see with their own eyes that indeed this total transformation of our planet to a planet of peace is going to happen. So that, I think, would give a kind of high level overview about what I've been doing recently and who I am what's kind of motivating me. But of course, as you ask questions, Charles, then we can get into more details on that.
Okay, so when I first contacted you most recently, you mentioned that you were traveling um, and that you were near Atlanta, just south of Atlanta, but you're based out of, uh, where's your base at? Where
No,
you,
no, I'm based in Atlanta, and because of the so-called pandemic or plandemic, depending upon which word you wish to use for it, I have not really been doing any traveling since 2020. The last time I traveled, I went from here to Chicago for a Crystal Skull conference. But right after that, I basically have stayed here, and I've mostly been doing work and sharing information online.
so you're third, how far south of Atlanta are you from?
I think we're about 30-minute drive from downtown Atlanta.
And what's the name of what's the name of the place? You know, if I watch the
Well, we're
weather.
close. Yeah, we're close to Peachtree City,
Okay.
Georgia.
All right.
Okay, which is a fairly big city, and Fayetteville's also out here, and Sonoya. Those three are where we're close to.
And have you ever gone through? I guess you said you want to talk about things that are not related to crystal skulls, but before we branch off into the area that you want to focus on, just for the sake of the audience, have you gone through any or many metaphysical ceremonies with any of the crystal skulls at all? Or
Well, I would say, uh, of course I have, but I want to try to rephrase your question so that I can answer it more honestly. To me, working with a crystal skull, whether it's privately in meditation or working with a group of people in a ceremony, like in sacred places, it's the same. It's still trying to work with the energies of this artifact, not only to cause personal transformation, but also to send out energetically all over the planet special healing energies. So like we've had world peace meditations where other people, and I call us crystal skull guardians. We're not the owner of these um, artifacts or uh, skulls made out of various stones. They pick us, we don't pick them. And we need to, and what we do as guardians is we honor them, that they've picked us as their guardian. And then we try to work with the special energies that are contained within them to share them with the planet and with people in general. I'm going to apologize because I have a slight cold, so occasionally I may need to take a water, I may cough, but
um,
it's not going to stop me from talking. Nothing ever stops me from sharing. That's Aries.
so I'm an Aryan also. So just
So
to,
you understand that concept. When we decide what we're doing, we do it no matter what. Whether people like us or they don't like us doesn't make any difference. We are inspired to do it, so we do it, and we assume that the right people will hear the right information and messages. So getting back to your question, yes, I've done a lot of meditation and ceremony with crystal skulls, and I'm at the point now with the personal crystal skulls where I do not need to have them with me physically. Now I do have one of our skulls here, which, let's see, try to share it with people if they can see it. This is a blue skull that's made out of lapis lazuli. So it's made by a modern carver. And because it has this kind of like circular pattern on the top, its name is Rabbi, which relates to my Jewish background because I was brought up under Judaism. So I've met rabbis before.
so do you have any do you give any credence to the notion that when the 13 crystal skulls get reunited, the world will be at peace? Do you
Yes, I actually have one of my stories, which I want to make into a movie, discusses those 13 skulls coming together in a sacred place in Brazil. And when they do, according to my story, now this could be a vision I'm having of the future, I don't know, but I see it very clearly in my mind that they create a special frequency of energy that kind of like they're in a circle with one in the center, and this energy just goes up into the sky and it totally covers the entire world. And in my story, when that frequency of energy is broadcast, people like, who are fighting with each other or hate each other, it just disappears. All they feel is peace and calm and love. So I believe that there is a possibility that in the past there have been a sacred set of 13 crystal skulls or multiple sets of 13 crystal skulls, because the Mayans have talked about 52, and 52 is 4 times 13. So perhaps the Mayans have their own set of 13, and maybe there are 3 other indigenous cultures who have sets of 13. But the whole concept of 13 is the 1 and the 12, which comes up everywhere. Comes up in Judaism, the Levites, which are the priests, and the 12 tribes of Israel. Comes up in Christianity, the Christ and the 12 apostles. And it even may be representative of our solar system, that we have the sun surrounded by 12 planets, which means that there would be 3 other planets that have not been officially sanctioned. Nibiru, they say, could be one of those, which has a elliptical orbit, so it's going way out past the Oort cloud, comes past the Earth. But George Hunt Williamson, who was an early UFO contactee in the 1950s, had talked about in some of his early books, there may be another planet in front of Mercury, which we cannot see because of the sun. So yes, I believe that there is something to this legend that the indigenous people have talked about, that there are 13 sacred skulls. And it could also relate to, if people believe in this, I look at everything and I trust what feels right for me. So I talk about it, but I let people decide for themselves, which I believe is called being in the neutral. That possibly inside of our Earth, which is hollow, that there could exist 12 tribes um, of people who are of galactic origin that used to be on the surface that went into the inner surface of the Earth, and the 13th is their collective family of those 12 tribes. So 1 in 12 comes up a lot. So I assume, therefore, because we see this, that also this is going to be true with the crystal skulls. Now, there is one crystal skull that I went to look for in Peru, and I wrote an entire book about 3 of my 3 journeys there with other information, but it is not one which I have seen physically. It calls itself the blue skull. I have like a telepathic communication with it. It could exist in a different dimensional plane. It could have been, it was in the physical at one time, but it went into these higher planes of dimensions, waiting until humanity's ready to deal with it. Now, whether this blue skull is one of those 13, because what, let's see, how can I explain this? The crystal skulls speak to their guardians. I am not the only one that this happens to. I'm in touch with many people all over the world who tell me that they have contact with their personal skulls. I believe that the higher beings, and I know this is going to sound kind of a little bit far-fetched and there's no way to prove it, but it's the only way I can explain this phenomenon that's happening. But it's connected to the concept of the 13 skulls. That's why I have to bring it up, because I'm going to make a statement and I have to explain where am I getting this information from. So I believe that there is a living consciousness that is connected to the crystal skulls which have been activated. Not all of them. Like there's a lot of modern carvers now who are making skulls in every shape and size and every gemstone. And I'm not saying that all of those skulls have this living consciousness. But the ones which have been around for a very long time, which we call ancient or very old, definitely have this. When I've been in the presence of them, it's like I'm in the presence of a living being, because some of them start talking to me, and the way I hear them is they speak in my thinking voice. Like, for example, when I read a book, if I try to look at the words and understand what I'm reading, it hurts me. I cannot do it. I have to hear the words I'm reading in order to have comprehension. To me, this is a form of telepathy. So what I'm claiming is that through these skulls is a living consciousness, which I hear telepathically in my thinking voice. This happens with my personal skulls, and it has happened with those I believe to be very old. So from the collective consciousness that is working through the crystal skulls, who are doing this on behalf to assist humanity going forward, they have spoken to me and said, none of these 13 original crystal skulls are in the physical reality right now. If there is a person who says, I have one of them, or I have the 13th skull, which does come up, I know immediately that they are not speaking the truth. Now, this I can only say for myself, but this is the message that the skulls have communicated with me or is coming from soul knowledge, because I know I've had other lifetimes working with crystal skulls. Atlantis definitely was one. Anytime I think about Atlantis, I'm immediately in the temples where they had the crystal skulls and worked with them in ceremony and healing and all kinds of positive work for the planet and for the people. So whether this blue skull that I'm mentioning is one of them, when I speak to the blue skull, again, it's in another dimension and talks to me telepathically. It does not answer this question. However, when I was in Peru and I saw the skull in a Lemurian temple, which I believe I was in the area where this temple used to exist, high up in the Andes Mountains by a sacred lagoon with a mountain peak close by. I saw the blue skull as one of 13 in a Lemurian temple circular room in a glass case that was held on the wall. And all the other ones that were there had different colors. This one was a sky blue. So the blue one I showed you is too dark. It's the one that I see that I'm having communication with is more of a sky blue color. So I believe that there is an original set of 13, but I don't believe humanity is ready to deal with it. Their vibrational frequency would be too high. So perhaps the blue skull encouraging me to write this book, having never met this skull in person, in the physical, is a prelude in some way to some of these skulls eventually coming forward. And it may be very possible that when we go into this period of time that I'm talking about, 2037 to 2040, that they will return, that they will be present. I think they were present at one time, but I don't think that any of them are present now. All the ones that we know now is giving us an opportunity to kind of become accustomed, to the energies that the skulls can offer. Now, I want to tell one story to illustrate what's possible, because you said I have control of this. So I'm going with,
Sure,
being spontaneous, but I'm
go ahead. Go ahead.
trying to give a personal experience that might support these comments I'm making. So people who have gotten our books, they're going to see two skulls on the cover. They're going to see the amethyst skull that I met first in 1983, which represents a very older ancient skull. And then they're going to see the smoky quartz skull that came to me in 1999 at a Crystal Skull conference, a gift from an ex-wife that was made by a Brazilian carver. It's a modern skull. It is made out of smoky quartz, a light smoky quartz, so it would be a gray color. So on the cover of our book, I have the ancient skull looking at a new skull, because you can't understand the crystal skulls unless you look at all of them. The ones made before, the ones being made now. They each have a role to play to help humanity. So there was a time when I lived in Holland. And again, that was with another ex-wife. I've had 3 ex-wives and now my current wife, Katrina. We've been together since 2009. So about 13, going on 12, now into our 13th year. And so anyway, what happened is I gave a crystal skull talk in Belgium, and one of the people I met there, I think his first name was Mark, he said, I'd like to invite you to my house. I have a group of people and we work with a certain device. It's called a Leckyer antenna. Oh, what's that? Well, the Leckyer antenna is like a dowsing rod. It was developed obviously by a man named Leckyer, but it has numbers on it. And we know how to set the numbers so that we can point it to try to figure out what vibrational frequencies are coming out of whatever object or person we're measuring, okay? So It's like a dowsing rod. A dowsing rod flips by itself when it finds water or gold or whatever you're looking for. So the Leckyer antenna also flips by itself when it finds that measurement of energy that it's looking for. So Mark had at his house, his teacher, was training them how to use this device, and the other students. And the teacher knew that I was going to bring a crystal skull, which they were going to do measurements on to see what frequencies of energy would come. Now, Portal de Luz is a modern skull used diamond tip tools to make by a Brazilian carver. However, Portal de Luz talks to me, therefore he has a living consciousness that's working through him. I do not know exactly who this living consciousness is. Is it a galactic being? Is it a spirit guide? Is it an extension of myself? I don't know. I just know when Portal de Luz talks to me, I feel the energy and I recognize him. It's the same like with the blue skull. When the blue skull is speaking to me, it's a totally different vibrational energy and feeling I have to it. They're not the same. Okay. I know when the blue skull talks to me, it is one that has been around for a very long time compared to Portal de Luz, who was carved in 1998. Okay. So they start measuring the skull after their teacher tells them, this is a stone, nothing is going to happen. We are wasting our time. Okay. And so they tell me, do you know that your skull is broadcasting the 5 physical senses energetically, the 5 physical senses of a human being? No, I don't know that. I just know I have communication with this skull. The teacher did not believe this, thought that the practitioner was making it up. They did it 2 more times, and consistently he showed that he was broadcasting the energies of our 5 physical senses of a human being. So I thought that was extremely interesting. Now, another experience with Portal de Luz. Of course, I'm very proud. I'm like his dad. I'm very proud of him. And other people think I'm nuts, but I feel proud because there's certain experiences I've had with him where, I don't know how this crystal skull is doing this. Okay, so there's another time where Uri Geller is interviewing me. Uri Geller is, the spoon bender, the psychic from Israel.
I know who he is.
Right. He has great interest in crystals. And so I met him in England, and I interviewed him, and he was holding Portal de Luz for about half an hour. So then he said, I would like to interview you. So we did an interview, and Portal de Luz is next to me, and they did a simulcast. It was a radio interview and an internet at the same time. As soon as we start talking about crystal skulls, his brother-in-law, who was helping him, runs out into the room and says, Yuri, the internet connection has totally stopped. I can't get it to work. So did it have something to do with the energy of Portal de Luz? Now, this happened to me another time. I was in Las Vegas, which I actually lived in for about 1.5 years. And that's the place I've seen the most UFO clouds that I've seen anywhere in the world, by the way, probably because it's near Area 51. And I was doing a simulcast broadcast, video, like we're doing now, video, and on radio. And as soon as they started the video interview over the internet, it totally shut down. They had tested the equipment, and it didn't start up again until the interview was over. Does it have something to do with Portal de Luz? One last experience I had with Portal de Luz that I'm thinking about right now to share is I work with a crop circle researcher in England. David Kingston unfortunately passed away. He was the most wonderful person you would ever want to meet. He attended my first public crystal skull talk in Yeovil, England, which is close to, I think, Stonehenge, not too far from Stonehenge. It's in that part of England. So, he really enjoyed the talk and we became friends. And then I said to David, I said, I'm being drawn to the crop circles. Portal de Luz keeps asking me to take him to the crop circles. So I think his energy can do something in the crop circles. Is there a way we can do a test? Yes, I have a device that measures electromagnetic energy. And, you just saw this crop circle near Avebury, that was a yin-yang pattern. Why don't we go there and try to do a test with Portal de Luz and see if his energy can affect the energy in the crop circle. So this device that he brought with him went from minus 100 to plus 100, okay? And as he was taking it through the crop circle, we saw that where there was no pattern, the measurement was 0, and where there was a pattern, it was a plus number. Okay, so in other words, he was sensing through his device there's an energy where there's a pattern that's being created in the crop circle, and where it's empty, it's 0. And also at the center, it measured as 0. But Portal de Luz explained it to us through himself, because David and I had another friend with me and myself, and generally I don't see things in the crystal skull. I have other people who do. We all saw what looked like a vortex moving up and down very fast, which meant to me that Portal was showing, I call him Portal for short, that at the center of the crop circle was 0 because this energy going up and down was negating itself. Then we put Portal de Luz at the center of the crop circle, and it remained 0, so he didn't do anything. But Portal kept telling me, Dad, I want you to meditate with my favorite song. Now again, this is going to sound crazy for people, but Portal de Luz has a favorite song, which I think is connected to a past life I had, which is Paschal Bell's Canon in D. I have been to the church that Paschal Bell played the organ. I have been to his grave, and I have also met one of his ancestors who was an ambassador for Germany. Okay, and I'm also a musician too, and I played my Crystal Skull theme song over his grave when I visited it in Germany. So these are the kind of things that happen to me. I get inspired. But let me come back to the story at the crop circle, and then we can move on to something else if you want. So so I'm by the center of the crop circle. They don't have MP3 players yet, so I have to use a portable CD with a CD and headphones. I start meditating with Portal. Immediately, I feel like a cone of energy is totally surrounding me. I don't know where this came from. So it's almost like I'm physically there, but a part of me is in a different vibrational space. About halfway through the song, I feel I need to sing with it. Now, his song doesn't have any words. So, I'm just doing whatever I'm doing. And I'm thinking I'm singing in perfect harmony with him. And then we finish the meditation. The people around me are looking at me and they go, "What song were you singing?" So in other words, I wasn't singing that song. I was doing something else. And then he said, "Okay, let's see now if something's going to change because I did the meditation with his favorite song." So first we measured around the skull and it was like plus 100. There was a lot of energy. Then we put the skull down in the center and then it was plus 100 also at the center after we removed the skull. So basically what I'm sharing with these stories with Portal de Luz is that even with a newly made skull and the right person who is the guardian, working with it in a sacred way, in a respectful way, taking it to sacred sites that are filled with energy, doing meditations for world peace, offering sessions for healing of other people, the skull is going to come to life. Or whatever is this living consciousness or spirit is going to be drawn to start working through the skull. Now, one other thing that might illustrate this is the most famous crystal skull in the world is known as the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull. You've probably heard of that one, Charles, right?
Sure.
Okay. So most of the time when people think about a crystal skull, they think about the Mitchell-Hedges skull because it was shown on Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and there's been documentaries. I actually just saw another documentary, and I can't remember the name of it. It was on cable, on Hulu. Like, I think it's called Unexplained. It's with William Shatner as the host. And he did another one like That's Weird or something like that, which I was actually interviewed for too. He was the host, and he drops a crystal skull in that one, kind of humorous. But in this latest one, they talked about strange stones, so they picked on the Mitchell Hedges skulls. So they gave the whole story, and they had an actress, I guess, who received the healing from the skull by a crystal that was placed in its presence. She had some uncurable disease or something like that, and she put the crystal in water and kept drinking it, and she fully recovered. So with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, what did I want to tell you? This is what happens to me. I lose my train of thought when I jump around too much. Do you know what I was saying? Why I brought the Mitchell Hedges skull up? Did I give you a clue?
Not really. I mean, you just mentioned it and said it, mentioned the obvious things like it's very famous and uh, that somebody got a healing from a crystal that was in water and that was near the crystal, near that skull, but that's about all you said. Really go beyond that. That's
Yeah,
okay. Lose your thought. We can always go on to a different thought, whatever comes to
yeah,
your
we
mind.
need to because I've lost. It was one of the experiences I had with it that was related to the other things I was talking about.
That's okay. It'll come to you if it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. So,
Okay, so let's move on to something else. But anyway, that is the most famous crystal skull. It's an exact duplicate almost of our own human bone skull. And it's the one that has affected me the most that I've met of all of them.
so you've met Max.
I've met Max too. I had an interesting experience with Max when Joanne Parks, the Guardian, brought it here to Atlanta, and I was with Katrina. So each one is different. I don't the ones I have the strongest affinity for is the Mitchell Hedges skull. Of course, the skulls that we work with that we have, the amethyst skull I saw, and I also had some interesting things with the British Museum crystal skull, where one time I was actually allowed to touch it. They never allow people to do that, but somehow I was in the right place at the right time.
So is there, of all the experiences you've had with all the skulls, when you were physically in the presence of one of them,
Right.
is there one experience that you haven't already told us that stands out as the most interesting experience you've had with them physically in the presence of any of the skulls?
Yeah, well, now you bring me back to the Mitchell Hedges skull, so I have to tell this story. So when the Indiana Jones film came out, um, I was in Chicago and they contacted me, and Bill Holman, who's the guardian of the Mitchell Hedges skull, was in Indiana, northern Indiana. So it was like an hour and a half drive from where I was. So they asked me to come to Indiana. They paid for my hotel and they interviewed me in his house. And then he arranged, and I'm not going to talk about this research because they didn't cover it, but I've done this with other skulls. They arranged, he arranged for us to go to a local high school that had a science lab, and we did some energy tests with a meridian stress test system with the crystal skulls and the people that were there. So then after I had made that contact with him, I asked him, I said, Bill, can I come back to your house for two purposes? Number one, I have a friend whose son has video equipment, so we'd like to do an interview with you, or I'll ask you questions. So kind of the reverse roles we have today, Charles. And then I said, I'd like to do a private meditation with the Mitchell Hedges skull. So that's what I want to talk about. That meditation that I did in his home has forever changed me. And I still do not totally understand an aspect of what happened. So I'll explain it. Okay, so first let's set up what was going on. So Anna Mitchell Hedges, who was the prior guardian of this skull before she passed away, and Bill Holman inherited it. He was a very good friend. Some people say they were married. I don't know. I just know that she lived with him, and he was totally supportive of her and her father, and he still is. He continues to tell their stories. He had a small table, which may have come from Marie Antoinette. I'm not totally sure, but it was close to the ground. And so he put on a lazy Susan the Mitchell Hedges skull, and I was sitting on the floor, in a meditative pose. I had three crystal skulls with me, Portal de Luz, which is a 10-pound smoky quartz skull. And then I had Geronimo Golden Eagle Eye, which is about a 2-pound smoky quartz skull made by the same carver, and a rose quartz skull that was a little bit smaller than that. All three were made by the same Brazilian carver. So I had Portal de Luz facing the Mitchell headed skull, face to face. The two other skulls were behind, creating a triangle around the skull. The skull, therefore, when I started my meditation, in relationship to where I'm looking at it, was at its side. Okay. So I start doing my meditation, and I think I've been a musician in the past. If I play the right music when I'm meditating with a crystal skull, I can go into a very high state of consciousness, you know, very peaceful, very joyful. So the first part of the meditation, I felt like I was in heaven. If I was going to experience what heaven was like, it was this very peaceful, you know, I don't know how to do it. It was just very calm, very peaceful. I wasn't worried about anything. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just happy to be there. Now, you know, as a brother Aries, we cannot do the same thing for too long. We get bored. We have to have variety. But this was so peaceful and calm, I could have sat there for hours. Okay. But then the meditation shifted when I turned the skull to face me. Then, so I have to kind of describe this. So again, I'm in a meditative position. I'm sitting on the ground. I have my headphones on to my MP3 player. I'm flipping songs really fast. And I pick up, it's kind of like in this direction from me on my right side, but in the air, high up in the room, in the air, I feel a presence. This is my gift. I'm sensitive to energy. Like if I was doing a reading for you, I could talk about things that you've never shared with me before, because I will feel what it's like to be you. So if there is a spirit in the room or a living consciousness in the room, I'm going to feel where it is. I may not see it, but I'm going to sense it and feel it, and I may hear it. So I felt the presence in the room of something which I have never encountered before. I'm not sure I can even describe it properly. It seemed to know everything about me. Um, it had never existed as a human being. I think I don't know, dimensional, I guess we could say, from the light universes. It seemed to be a group consciousness, not a single spirit. And I believe that there will be other things that will come to me in the future from it. In other words, I can go back and remember this experience. I can remember this consciousness, feeling the energy, but it feels like there's other things that happen to me that I'm not consciously aware of. Okay. But there is one result, which my wife Katrina may not agree, because sometimes Capricorn and Aries don't get along all the time. So I get loud, but it goes by me really fast. Is it helped me to stay in the neutral? This ability is extremely important right now. I mean, all we have to do is look at the pandemic and COVID. It's dividing us. You know, people that are your best friends and family members, if they don't agree with how you see this stuff, they become extremely upset with you and will disown you. This is how diversive the situation has come from. Well, when you're in the neutral, you don't judge other people. In other words, I can give an opinion, I can offer advice and assistance, but I'm not attached if the person agrees or disagrees or uses it or doesn't use it. I have to respect that they are who they are. Now, there was one time where I'm meditating. This is a message which I think came from Creator, okay? Because I was asking Creator a question. I was saying to Creator, you know, here we are, here on this planet, as an individual. We're minute compared to the immensity of all the realities, all the parallel dimensions, all the higher frequencies and everything. So why would God, what does God benefit through us? Okay, because, you know, God, we exist through the mind of God and God's love, Creator's love. Without Creator thinking about us, we disappear. Without Creator's love, we cannot exist. And the Creator's love is being in the neutral. It doesn't judge. And the answer that I heard was, Why, your experiences, of course. Now, what does that mean? That means that no matter who we are, no matter what we're doing, Creator receives through us from our experiences. Now, we may judge our experience to be good or bad. We may judge another person to be like a Hitler and be totally evil, or to be like a saint, like Saint Francis. Okay. But the key is Creator doesn't judge anything. He loves us, and it's through our experience that Creator receives that experience. And it's a unique experience. Okay. Unless, of course, Creator does what happened in the Matrix, where he starts everything all over again. And that's possible that could be done, that all reality could start over again. I don't know. Because anything we can imagine has to exist somewhere. Otherwise, we can't imagine it. So that message that I received helps me to understand about being in the neutral. So that's very important, Charles. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you and see what your next question is.
All right, well, I just had to close my door because I was hearing my wife talk while I was hearing you. It was very loud, and that's because my dog came in the room and he opened the door as he came in, and it was wide open, and I was like, why is my wife so loud? I got the door closed. And I looked over and the door was open. So anyway, I had to go close it. So, um, so you told me before we got started that you really didn't want to focus on the crystals, and we've spent 42 minutes focusing on the crystals. So tell me what you really want to talk about.
Well, I was happy to talk about that because the crystal skulls for me have an important role to play in helping humanity for peace. So it's good for your listeners and viewers to have some understanding about what they are about, because they're not the only sacred tool that's going to be coming back to us. I think there's a lot of them. Okay, so one thing I'd like to talk about is a perception of how to look at what's going on in our world right now. Because I think almost all of us, especially those of us who have been on our own spiritual path, we knew at some point that there was going to be um, a big challenge on the planet between the forces of light and darkness. We knew that this would come up eventually, and now we are in the process of going through it. I believe what's happening right now is we're in an undeclared war. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. And then Spirit has guided me to something else, which I haven't really talked about before. So I'm going to add this because it's part of the puzzle that's coming up. So first of all, how to deal with what's going on for right now. Now, there's only one thing that I'm going to personally speak about and kind of personalize, and that's the vaccines. Okay. And of course, different people have different feeling about it and how they're perceiving it. Oh, but in order for me to explain this, you didn't ask me, but I have to talk about my two very special experiences, that how I might have the understanding of this. See, whenever I talk, I don't like to just make um, a statement. I like to explain, why am I making that statement? Why am I coming to that position? So I have to go into these two other experiences, and then I will come back to this. So the two experiences are, how do I know what's going to come in the future? Because remember, I already talked about, I believe by 2037 to 2040, we're going to have peace. So there's two personal experiences, and there is a device that has been used that I think support these, what I'm going to share, and then I'll come back. And this time I won't forget, Charles. So don't. Okay, so the first experience that occurred to me was when I was in Brazil. And Brazil, by the way, has a very, very powerful energy. It really activates people's spiritual gifts. I noticed when I'm in Brazil, all my gifts are heightened. Okay, I have a lot of interesting experiences that don't normally happen. So one day I'm sitting typing something on the computer, and all of a sudden I have this vision about our future. And what happens is this person called Argus starts talking to me. And I say, who are you? He says, Joshua, I'm you. I'm who you're going to become in this lifetime in our future. So I can tell you what the future is going to be like, but I can't tell you how we get there. Because if I do, you won't become me. You have to go through, I know what you're going to be going through, but I can't tell you. Now, first question that we have to ask is it possible from a spiritual perspective that you can receive information from a part of yourself that's in our future? Yes. Why is that? Because if you're really a student of the metaphysical and the spiritual, you start discovering or remembering from soul memory. There is no time and there is no space. For example, I remember there was one time I was talking to a medium, and I asked one of her guides about this, and he said, where I exist, everything is in the simultaneous now. And I said, are you able to focus on so many things at one time? Yes. All I have to do is just decide what I want to pay attention to, but I can see many things at the same time. So the reason I'm saying this is, it is entirely possible, if you believe in that you could receive a message from your future self. Okay. So this is how I explained it. Okay. So what this future self was showing me is the world in the future. He was showing me that there will be many communities, and all the people that live in the community are your family. All the adults are parents to all the children. So in other words, it's totally about love. It's totally about helping each other. The galactics, I don't like to call them extraterrestrials, I call them galactics. They're going to be walking amongst us. It'll be perfectly natural. For the children of the future, they're not going to go, oh, I'm afraid we have an extraterrestrial over there. No, it's going to be normal for them. Okay. And because we're going to have that contact with the galactics, as well as the advanced people that live underground and in the hollow earth too are going to be in contact with us. We're going to have access to tremendous knowledge and information and technology and all kinds of things. So if all of those things are present, it would make sense that our planet would be at total peace. The other way I could describe this future is if you study what John Lennon wrote in Imagine, okay, what he's talking about, no war, no greed, all these things. I think that he had a vision of the future that inspired him when he wrote the song. So this is what Argus is communicating with me about this future, how we're all going to live together harmoniously, be like communities. Nobody is going to be judging each other. Each person is going to have freedom to explore anything they wish to do. The second experience I have, which is about the future, but this one is more specific because it's helping me to understand what's happening now. Whereas Argus didn't tell me how we get to where he is. He just shows me where we're going. Is I used to live, as I said, in Las Vegas, and there was one day I was walking down one of the main streets, and the main streets in Las Vegas is like kind of here in around where we live. We have these like local highways, but there's stores and buildings and everything on the street. You can go 55. So it's one of those main streets in Las Vegas. So I'm walking to go to McDonald's. I wasn't so wise then. Now I know don't eat McDonald's. But then, I was with myself, and I'm not good at making my own food. So that was just an easy way to get a meal. And all of a sudden I hear a loud screech behind me, and I'm fearless. I always think I'm protected, so I don't turn around. Next thing I know, it's 2 days later, I'm strapped in a hospital bed with a doctor asking me, do you remember the truck that hit you? And I'm going, what is he talking about? Because I didn't have any memory. So now coming forward, and this was back in, let's see, when was I in Las Vegas? I guess in 2000, I think. Yeah, 2000. What happened is I was taken out of body, and I don't know by who, but when I was on an airplane, like about a month or so after that, it felt like I was on a spaceship. So maybe my light body was teleported aboard spacecraft, but my physical body stayed. And they had to strap me down in the hospital because the wandering souls in the hospital saw I wasn't there. And so they went in and they started acting crazily. And I don't know about that. But what I remember from, I call this my coma experience, is I remember being at a meeting, and the only way I can describe this meeting is if anyone saw the Star Wars movie, not the first one that came out, but the first one in the series of 9, where Princess Amidala goes to Trantor and goes to a meeting where there are beings from all over the galaxy, representatives. I was at a meeting like that. There are a lot of different galactic beings or all kinds of beings. I mean, I only have like 1 or 2 images in my mind. And I'm there to give feedback because they want to help the people of the earth. They want to help us to have peace. But we still have free will, and there still is, I believe, a divine plan of how this is going to happen. And we still have to participate in this. We are responsible. You know, we can't just have these advanced beings come down here and do it for us. We have to also be involved in the creation of peace on this planet. And so they were showing me all kinds of scenarios. So I saw the future again, and I was giving feedback, and I knew what their plans were and how they were going to help us and interact with us. But the challenge was when it was time to go back home, I saw like this door in front of me with all black, and there was some kind of masculine person by the door who I knew. And I was begging with him, please don't blank my memory. I saw so many amazing things. I want to tell people, I want to help people to understand what's going to be coming. No, I'm sorry, you can't remember. However, I will tell you this. As things begin to manifest in your reality, in your time, you're going to know what is true and what is not true. Okay? So the people listening to me based on that experience, and if I say certain things, it's because I saw them and because I have a sensing of it. But they don't have to agree. I'm just a person offering my opinion or insight. So when I say about the vaccine, I know within myself, when I think about it, when I hear these people say, oh, it's absolutely safe. In the meantime, on the alternative news, like on Telegram, which I always listen to, hundreds and thousands of people are having a very bad effect if they don't pass away to this vaccine. I just need to tell people this is something, really think about it, do research on it if you haven't already taken it. You know, it's not for our highest good. Probably everything that's happened up to now, the COVID-19, the pandemic, the mask, the social distancing, all of that was done for this vaccine, to prepare people for the vaccine. I've heard this voiced by quite a few other people. Okay, so now let's just come back to what's happening in general. As I said, I think we have an undeclared war that's going on right now. And the bottom line is that when the truth comes out about, you know, all these things that we know about publicly, when our history comes out, the true history of our planet, a lot of people are going to be in shock because a lot of the things that we have been taught in school, that we see on the media and the movies and all this, that people, you know, who are our leaders are telling us. I think that, you know, it's like God is saying the truth is going to come out. And from a spiritual perspective, the best way to deal with this is, number one, as you're receiving information, does it resonate with you? Don't worry about who's the person that's saying it, even if it's the president of the United States, which right now I don't trust anything the so-called president of the United States is saying right now. But if it is somebody who you believe in and trust, it could be your religious leader, it could be a medical doctor. Everything has been infiltrated. And this is why the people behind this, whatever you want to call them, aren't worried about it, because for most people, they'll go, it's impossible. This can't be happening on all these different levels. But if you're a person following your spiritual path, you have to challenge, the things that are being shared with you, does it make sense? I mean, there's a lot of loopholes in the stories being told. Like a lot of people thought by now, a year and a half later, once COVID started, we'll be done with this. Everything will be great. Now, a lot of people are thinking, oh, if I take the vaccine, I'll be protected. But they're telling people publicly, well, we have the variant now, and we cannot guarantee that you'll be protected. As well as, this doesn't make any sense to me. If one of the companies who offers the vaccine and you have an adverse effect, you can't go after that company and sue them. They are totally protected. So what I'm saying is, if you go inwardly into yourself, talking to your own inner guidance, talking with God, whatever it is that you're using, going with your feeling, going with your intuition, you have to really try to look at the things that are being presented right now. Okay, because I believe in what I was shown in the coma experience, it's not what it seems to be. And I think through the election that we went through here in the United States, because you may have viewers, obviously, that are outside the United States. You know, they have talked about, and a lot of people are talking about, and this is going on right now in Maricopa County in Arizona, where Phoenix is, whether that election was rigged or not, was fraudulent. I've listened to people who participated in the voting process, who told stories about cheating that went on, or irregularities, or ballots that just showed up late at night. So I think basically the way to look at what's happening is the truth is coming out is going to test all of us. But if a person could visualize like this positive future that I'm talking about, that I have seen through ARGIS, and not worry about, well, how are we going to get where we are here, where there's so much chaos and craziness and madness going on, to a time where everything is totally peaceful. We don't need to know exactly what are the events or the activities or what's going to happen between now and then that's going to take us there. If we keep to a peaceful state in ourselves and follow what is truthful for us, which might mean that you may lose friends and family because you may have to stand up for something you believe, which they don't, because there's a pressure right now, which has always existed since I can remember, by society for people to conform, to be a certain way. And that's not where we're headed. Where we're headed is where we have to honor who we are and love ourselves and just do the best that we can. Listen to what other people have to say, but make up your own mind and your own decision. So this is what I wanted to say about the situation going on. Now, there is one of my 4 free ebooks, which some people on my mailing list quit as a result of it, because I shared both the light and the dark in there, what I think is happening. If people are interested that watch this, this is another book that they can get, they can read and see if what's written there makes sense to them or not. But I have a strong feeling that some positive events are going to start happening very soon. So this truth can start coming out and we can bring the planet back into a harmonious way. So the other key would be not to come from fear. You know, just trust that it's God's plan, we're going to see peace. And actually, each of us, if we stay in a positive space, when we talk to people and don't come from fear and panic, we can actually help our friends and family. Because they might come back to us later and say, you know, some of these things you were talking about, which I hated you for and I didn't want to listen to, I'm open now. I want to understand it. So that's where I want to go. Now, there's one other thing, Charles, if you let me do this, which actually came from Katrina. She pointed me in this direction. So I want to honor her. And this is connected to that we haven't been told the true history of our planet. There's information coming out now about a civilization called Tartaria. I've been watching a number of videos. Has that come to your attention before, Charles?
No.
Okay. So Tartaria was shown on old maps from the 15 and 16 and 1700s. The only thing that we were taught in school was about the Tartars, which somehow seemed to be connected to the Chinese. Like sometimes people think the Tartars were the Chinese. On the old maps that I looked at online, I saw Tartaria was a huge, huge country, which at one point was all of Russia, probably the countries that are east of Russia and part of China, and that the entire world was living together as one. Now, what is beyond the maps? What is the proof of this? The proof of this is, and what's being claimed by this, which seems very real to me, is if you study the most advanced stone buildings and structures that exist on the earth, you will find that a lot of them, the lower floors, are underground. And they talk about that there was some kind of a mud flood, is what they call it, that totally wiped out Tartaria. And that could have happened, I think they were saying it happened between 1812 and 1816 was one I read. Because in the 18th century, all of a sudden, there were all of these young children refugees that just appeared out of nowhere. There were all these books written about it. So the key is, if you study these stone buildings, how intricate it was and the way they were made, it is impossible with the technology that we had in the 1700s and the 1800s and even the 1900s, that we had the ability to make all these buildings. Now, the other thing that was talked about this, which made perfect sense to me, is that these advanced buildings were used for free energy, that the Tartarians had the knowledge and the wisdom how to work with the Toros is the electromagnetic energy field. There was the ether that they worked with, and water. And the ether they got from within the sky above us. And they were able to create a very advanced society. So the same people right now who are trying to so-called control the world, whatever what you want to call them, they were the ones who were responsible for destroying Tartaria and taking over their buildings and eliminating everything to do with them from history, which they absolutely have the ability to do that. I mean, all you have to do is look at China or Russia. When the communists took over, what did they do? They changed their country's history. They wiped out anything that was negative about what was going on. Now, I'm not saying I have proof of this, but there are a number of videos that are available on YouTube, and it goes along with what I believe is going to happen when the truth comes out. People are going to learn that the history that we've been taught, that none of it is true, that the world has been developed in a totally different way, and that the things that, the people that we think and are experts and are telling us what's right or wrong, we're going to learn that a lot of them have been involved in, trying to mislead and misdirect a lot of people. So this, to me, this existence of Tartaria seems to be linked to the other subject that I was talking about. So this just came up for me. I've been watching it, and I'm just getting a big hit. I totally get it. I have a big hit from within myself. And I think there is absolute proof in these buildings that there was this advanced civilization before us, maybe that existed only like 200 years ago, or maybe 300 years ago. And they had a world of unity, free energy, um, totally amazing. And there are some photographs and pictures that still show, taken from the early 1900s, that still show part of this. I think the First World War and the Second World War may have been what was needed to completely wipe out all proof and evidence of this. So this is another thing just pointing out to people to take a look at. It's probably one of my more crazy theories, but well, it's not really my theory. It's the theory of the people talking, but it makes a lot of sense. And that all these buildings have part of them covered up by this mud also is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Something hit the world and it got reset. And that's what they're trying to do again. They're trying to do a reset on us. But I believe there will be a positive reset. Once the truth comes out, we'll have access to tremendous technologies, and plus contact with our galactic brothers and sisters, and this is what's going to take us to the golden age. in the next 20 years. So anything else you want to ask about, or do you think we've covered enough for this interview?
Well, okay, so I don't have any particular questions to ask you, but if you have anything in particular that you feel is important to say to the audience.
Okay, so we can finish up with that then, like a message or whatever. Okay, so I'm 66 years old now, and I've had a lot of experiences, as you can tell. But I've tried to follow, to my best ability, a spiritual path, which is to honor other people, honor our world, and find ways for us to work together.
Let me go ahead and end the show now because my wife wants to take over.
No.
So hold on a second. I'm going to stop the recording.
No.